y'all, I'm Amanda and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk all about the eject button item, which I expect to make a big comeback in Series 11 with the return of Dynamax, so stick around to learn more. Okay, so first up, what is the eject button and what does it do? Well, if the holder of an eject button is hit by a damaging move and it doesn't faint, then it'll use up the eject button and it'll get immediately switched out for a Pokemon of its trainer's choice. Keep in mind there are a couple times when the eject button won't activate, like if the Pokemon substitute takes a hit instead, if the move is affected by the effect of sheer force, it won't activate an eject button. And after a multi-strike move, the eject button will activate after the last hit, not the first one. Keep in mind also that suction cups, trapping moves and abilities, and Dynamax don't prevent a Pokemon from being switched out by the eject button. And if a switching move like U-turn or Volt Switch causes a Pokemon's held eject button to activate, then the Pokemon that used the move does not get switched out. So something else to talk about before we talk about specific Pokemon and sets is the Prankster ability. Prankster ability gives all status moves a +1 priority, and moves like Switcheroo or Trick, which allow a Pokemon to trade items with another Pokemon, are actually status moves. So Switcheroo will allow a Pokemon like Whimsicott to trade its eject button with an opposing Pokemon, and Trick will allow Pokemon like Grimmsnarl and Sableye to trade their eject buttons with opposing Pokemon's item. And because all three of those Pokemon have the Prankster ability, then the move Switcheroo will have a +1 priority, meaning it's probably going to go first before any attacks happen. However, Fake Out has a +3 priority, so Prankster Pokemon are pretty weak to Fake Out. It's important to play around that possibility. So the first Pokemon I want to talk about is Whimsicott. Remember, it has a Prankster ability, so it's weak to Fake Out, but its Switcheroo move is probably going to go before most other attacks. It has excellent support moves in addition to Switcheroo, like Tailwind and Taunt, so it's a really popular choice because not only do you have eject button to negate an opposing Pokemon's Dynamax, but you also have other support moves like Taunt to take care of opposing status moves like Trick Room, for example, and Tailwind so that you can have your own speed control. So most people that use Coalossal give it the item weakness policy and the ability Steam Engine. Steam Engine means that if a Coalossal gets hit with a water type move, then not only will its weakness policy be procced, but also its speed will be maxed out. It'll have +6 speed. So most people will pair Coalossal with either something like a Dragapult, which is really fast and can use Surf to do damage to the opposing Pokemon, but also proc your own Coalossal's weakness policy and Steam Engine. But people will also use a fast Pokemon with the move Aqua Jet. Aqua Jet has a +1 priority, which means that it might be able to outspeed some Prankster eject button users. Now, Whimsicott does outspeed most Aqua Jet users like Dragonite and Water Urshifu, so you really don't have to worry about that if you're using Whimsicott as your Switcheroo eject button user. Now, Grimmsnarl is another Prankster Pokemon with access to move Trick, which allows it to switch items with an opposing Pokemon. It is weak to Fake Out, just like Whimsicott is, but as a Dark type, it's immune to opposing Prankster moves like Taunt. So the opposing Pokemon cannot use Prankster Taunt on you and stop you from using Trick. It also has excellent support moves in addition to Trick, like Reflect and Light Screen, but it's not going to outspeed most Aqua Jet users. So Coalossal can still be a little bit difficult to play around if it's paired with an Aqua Jet user instead of a Surf user. And finally, Sableye as a Ghost type is immune to Fake Out, and as a Dark type, it's immune to opposing Prankster moves like Taunt. So there's very little that will be able to stop Sableye from being able to use its Prankster Trick to put an eject button on the opposing Pokemon. It also has excellent support moves in addition to Trick, like Quash for speed control and Will-O-Wisp to nerf opposing physical attackers. However, like Grimmsnarl, it's not going to outspeed most Aqua Jet users, so you can still have a little bit of a tough time playing around Coalossal if the opposing team is using an Aqua Jet user instead of a Surf user like Dragapult. So we've talked a little bit about how you may be able to use Switcheroo or Trick to get an eject button onto your opposing Pokemon. Remember that after the opposing Pokemon is holding an eject button, you can use a really fast attacker paired with that Switcheroo or Trick user to hit that Pokemon and knock it out of the field before it gets a chance to even use a move. And if that Pokemon Dynamax, then the opposing team loses its Dynamax for the duration of the game. It can be a really strong way to gain momentum early in the game and put you in a good position to win. However, there are some ways to counter eject button. So if you're going to use eject button, you need to be aware of these counters so you can play around them. And if you're not going to use the eject button, you might want to consider putting one of these counters on your team so that you can protect yourself against the eject button. So first up is you can find some way to block priority moves. Remember that most Pokemon that use this eject button strat use Prankster, Switcheroo, or Trick. So they have a priority move they're using. You could put Sarina on your side of the field because Sarina's ability, Queenly Majesty, blocks all priority moves against your team, but still allows your team to use priority moves. You could also use something like Indeedee, whose Psychic Surge will block all priority moves. However, that also stops you from using priority moves. Of course, you can work with the Psychic Surge to give yourself an extra offensive boost. For example, Psychic Surge will turn Expanding Force into a spread move and give it a 1.5 times base power boost, making it an incredibly difficult attack to work against. And also keep in mind that Dark types are immune to all Prankster moves. So if you have a Dark type on your team, then you don't really have to worry about opposing Pokemon like Grimmsnarl, Sableye, or Whimsicott doing anything to that Pokemon, whether it be Switcheroo or tricking an eject button onto it, or even things like taunting it, or priority Will-O-Wisp. So it's worth considering making your Dynamax Pokemon a Dark-type Pokemon like Galarian Moltres, for example, so that you don't have to worry about an eject button taking out your Dynamax completely. Okay, so that was just a quick discussion all about the eject button and how I think it might be used coming up in Series 11. Leave a comment down below if you think you'll use the eject button or how you might counter it. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel to see more videos like this. I'll see y'all later. Bye!